Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wednesday, September 8th, 2021 meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment's silence. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Meg, if we could please call the roll.
Sure. Miss Austin?
Present.
Mr. Castagnoli?
Here.
Mr. Collegian?
Present.
Miss Kearney?
Here.
Mr. Mortimer?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Sadi?
Present.
Mr. Zaharidis?
Here.
And Chairman Quish.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are missing one.
Jim Cater will not be in attendance this evening.
No, he's got a gig somewhere in Colorado playing music, so
That is correct.
be fun to be out there with him, but not tonight. Okay, first order of business is a Connecticut General Statute 8-24, 167 Hilldale Road, also known as 167 Morningside Drive. Request by the City of Milford pursuant to 8-24 for the acquisition of a public access easement as depicted on a certain map entitled Topographic Survey, 167 Hilldale Road, prepared for Phyllis Boynton, AKA 167 Morningside Drive, Parcel B, dated 7/20/2015, and revised 9/8/21 by Coda Spody and Associates. David, would you explain to us all what this is?
I could, or we can have Steve Johnson, who I believe is here.
Ah,
to explain it.
Perfect.
But if he's not here, then I'll explain it. But I thought I saw his name. Well, we'll assume he's having trouble with his microphone. So what's basically going on is, if you recall, you approved the 824 for this project back at the beginning of August. And what the city realized was that it wasn't clear enough on those maps what the public right-of-way is. So they needed to make sure that it was perfectly clear, because it also involves a federal grant, which they had to make sure that there is public access in the public right-of-way to qualify for the grant. So this is which you should be seeing is a updated map that shows that. So it shows the conveyance of the land and the area of the easement that will be going across.
So yes, please just identify what is the public's right-of-way.
My understanding of it is it will be along the top of the wall that gets built. So it will be in this area here going across. Exactly where will be
David?
subject to the.
David,
Yes,
Steve here. Yeah, if you, there is in that area that you're pointing to on your mouse, up above, there is a 5-foot public access sidewalk area that is being constructed. And that is denoted on there as a public access easement within the 20-foot easement provided to the city for maintenance and access.
okay. So that would probably be in this area here.
Correct. That
Okay.
is correct.
And then, so how does one access that? Either to the right or to the left?
That access point there, Chairman Quish, is from Hilldale Road and Morningside Drive to the right of this photo. So where the Morningside Drive intersects with Hilldale Court at that corner, will be the public access.
Okay, so that'll be through a grass area to get to the sidewalk or seawall?
Yeah, there'll be, the sidewalk is within the boundaries of the property, but the access to that sidewalk is intended to be continuous out to the road.
So there'll be a sidewalk, and then between the sidewalk and the shore, there will be the conveyance of land. So there will be
Correct.
8,000 square feet of land that is not accessible.
Correct. Yeah, that's a steep, very steep slope where the revetment's being constructed. So that was never intended as public access, and that's being conveyed to the city to be able to construct this revetment.
Will there be any kind of a fence between the walkway and the conveyed land?
Yes, so there is going to be a, what we call a Merritt Parkway style wooden guardrail that will extend across the, between the pedestrian, the public access walkway and the actual revetment area there where Mr. Salkus is pointing right now.
Right, and so high enough to meet OSHA fall protection standard?
Correct. And there's also going to be in this area, there will be a bench and there will be some LED lighting incorporated in with this design as well.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I didn't really get a chance to go over this too much. Is there supposed to be beach access or?
No, the nature of this, the way the project is being constructed, there will be no access down to the beach area. However, along Morningside Drive, there are various access points available to the public with stairwells that you can walk down to the what they call the bathing platform area.
The access is basically a sidewalk along the seawall? Is that
Yes,
correct?
around the top of the bluff. Since this was in part, this was federal funding administered through the Connecticut Department of Housing. The public access area we felt was an important component with the design.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I would hear a motion.
Of course, Mr. Sadi here. I move to approve as presented the request by the city of Milford pursuant to CGS 8-24 for the acquisition of a public access easement as depicted on a certain map entitled Topographic Survey, 167 Hilldale Road, prepared by Phyllis Boynton, AKA 167 Morningside Drive /Parcel B, dated July 20th, 2015, and revised September 7th, 2021 by Codispoti and Associates PC.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Casignoli. Are there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Austin,
With the motion,
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
with the motion,
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion,
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion.
Thank you.
Motion carries. So that's a good project to help with our resilience and general infrastructure.
Thank you, everybody, for your support.
Thank you, Stephen. Next order of business is 126 Smith Avenue. That application has been withdrawn. So those who were here to listen or contribute to that public hearing, at this point, there is no application. The second item is 252, 262 Depot Road. That has been postponed. at the request of the applicant. The next order of business is proposed regulation change 21-5 petition of John Nuff Esquire for changes to Article 3, Section 3.9 Shopping Center Design District, Article 5, Section 5.1 Parking and Loading Regulations, and Article 11, Section 11.2 Other Terms. So this is a public hearing. The applicant will have whatever time it needs to make their presentation, at which time we will open it up for public comment. So the applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street, right here in Milford, of course. Pleased to be with you this evening. Glad to see everyone again. I'm here tonight on behalf of Connecticut Post Limited Partnership. David, I'm going to ask if you can share the screen so my client, John Michelle, can share a PowerPoint presentation that we've prepared for the commission.
Yep, you can do it.
Okay, so in addition to me, we're going to be hearing from Stephen Levin, who's the founder and CEO of Centennial, and also John Michelle, who's the Senior Vice President of Development for Centennial. And so we can go on to the next slide. So this is an application to amend the shopping center design district regulations. As we've had our various conversations over the past year or so, this is a crucial first step in ensuring the continued vitality and relevance of the mall in a manner that the city can be proud of. As you know, we had a prior application for a regulation amendment that you heard in just about a year ago, September 2020. And while multifamily has always been permitted in the zone, the primary reason for the regulation amendment then and now was to allow multifamily to be built in a format that reflects market demands and expectations for appearance and amenities, corresponds to the context of the area, which we all know is large commercial in a close proximity, and also creates and maximizes synergy with the mall. And we listened to you very closely last year during the public hearing, and we also very much appreciated the opportunity to participate in the POCD committee meetings this spring, when the owners of 3 different properties in the shopping center design district zone were invited to participate. I think we had a very productive dialogue with the committee on those 3 separate nights, and including the one night that was scheduled for a public hearing. So the regulation amendment that's now before you responds in a very meaningful and thoughtful way to all the comments that we heard, not only at the public hearing last September, but also in the POCD committee meeting. And I apologize for Broad Street is a very active emergency service thoroughfare, so I apologize for the loud noise in the background. So next slide, John, please. So just want to briefly describe the carryover from the last time in terms of our regulation amendment, and then more importantly, what we changed in response to the comments that we heard from you. So what's carried over from last year's shopping center design district regulation amendment application is still a maximum of 300 residential units in the zone. And I think it's important that during the POCD committee meeting, we heard from the other 2 property owners where they said they have no interest in doing any multifamily residential. So, and we always assumed that was the case, but we received confirmation. The maximum height of 5 stories and 85 feet for multifamily residential carries over. We're going to talk about that a little bit further. There's a clarification that we were going to be making at David Selkis's request, and we're happy to do that. And then also the minimum acreage of a parcel with a residential use is 4 acres. We don't think that's terribly relevant for reasons we'll explain, because one of the things that we're doing is ensuring that any multifamily residential use is incorporated in close proximity to the mall. So more importantly, here's the changes that we've made. The first 3 in particular. First, the multifamily residential is permitted only when located in a mixed-use building. Second, it can only be located when we are proposing meaningful and a contiguous plaza area whenever we propose multifamily residential with both landscape and hardscape features. any mixed-use multifamily buildings must be located directly adjacent to the mall to help ensure that vitality that we're going to be talking about. Then also we've added a number of high-quality design considerations, sort of trying to create a better streetscape. You know, we note here that with a significant building transparency, which is sort of a fancy architectural word that sometimes architects will allow lawyers to use, which means lots of glass. So when you look at the imagery that we're going to be showing you shortly, we want to make sure that the storefronts that are fronting on the plaza area, you know, people can see inside to those shops, restaurants, retailers, and other businesses, and those people inside can see out and see the activity that's going on the plaza itself, and just so to help create a shared experience from those inside and outside as well. You'll see that we've incorporated a number of sustainability principles that we talked about during the POCD committee meetings, and then we've also expanded the list of special permit uses. So we're going to dig into some of the details, not too deeply, after we hear from Stephen and John. So with that, I'd like to introduce Stephen Levin, who's the founder and CEO of Centennial.
Sorry, muted myself. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Appreciate the introduction. First of all, I'd like to say that I hope everyone on this call is doing well and is safe. And I hope that certainly the recent weather conditions in the Connecticut, Milford area were not too impactful to any one individual or their families. I know the mall received some lower level damage, and so I certainly hope everyone and their families were safe. Thank you again for the opportunity to come before you and lay out for you, I think the reasons again why we're here, a little bit about who we are and why we feel so strongly about what we are presenting tonight and what we're asking you to support for the community of Milford. I know that many of you have heard me before, so I'm going to try to hit the high points and not say too many things repetitively that you've heard many times over. But I do think it's important to make some particularly significant statements. First of all, our company Centennial is one of the leading owners and developers of retail mixed-use properties nationally. This is what we do. We're a 25-year-old company. Today we are active with projects similar to what we are proposing at Connecticut Post, and a similar project in Orange County, in the city of Santa Ana, similar projects in Aurora, Chicago area, a suburb of Chicago, and in Vernon Hills, another suburb of Chicago. And all of those in partnership with USAA real estate company, similar to Connecticut Post, where we are partners with USAA. We are also working for other institutions, New York Life and Nuveen, in similar projects nationally. So I think it's important to note that we're not just someone here that is coming before you asking to allow for the redevelopment and repositioning and reimagining of the project in Milford without the level of experience and knowledge that we bring to the table. And I think that's very important because, there are many companies around the country that are discussing this, that are talking about it. But we are actually doing it, and we're doing it in a first-class manner. And I think that's critically important because what I think Milford benefits is that you have one of the best in the country in doing what we're proposing to do, as well as one of the best financial partners that will allow us to make this project what we are presenting. A little history real quickly. As you know, we purchased Connecticut Post in 2015 with 4 of the other projects I've mentioned. We picked Connecticut Post out of the 3 malls that are in its trade area, which is Meriden, Trumbull, and Connecticut Post. We had the opportunity to buy 1, 2, or 3. We purchased Connecticut Post for exactly the reasons that we are here tonight. We looked out into the future. At the time, we certainly knew that the landscape was changing. Certainly did not know the magnitude and the speed in which it has changed, but we knew that these projects were going to need to be reinvented. And we picked Connecticut Post because we felt between the 3 projects, it was the one that could and should end up being the survival candidate, the one that would be the most conducive to creating the type of mixed use project that we are describing. Because of its regionality, in addition to the community of Milford, it provided what we felt was the necessary foundation to allow us to do what we wanted to do and what we believe is the next 30, 40 years of how the great projects in America will be recreated. Since the time we've purchased Connecticut Post, where we spent over $200 million to acquire the mall, Penny's closed. We re-tenanted with Boscov's and had to relocate 5 tenants in order to make that happen. Spent, $17, $18 million to do that. We brought Dave & Buster's to the mall, another $5 or $6 million to do that. We have continued to try and add relevant tenants. We recently signed a 10-year renewal with Dick's Sporting Goods that cost us $2.5 million to retain Dick's, in addition to a $400,000 reduction in rent annually. Had we not done that, we would have lost them. So I point all this out for everyone to understand the commitment we made and the commitment we've continued to make to preserve Connecticut Post, to be able to do what we are proposing to do, and to not end up as, unfortunately, Meriden has and as Trumbull is dealing with. So this next slide here basically just addresses the state of our industry. And I think a few data points. I mean, 10 to 12 years ago, there were 1,600 malls in America. It was the most iconic property built in America that surfaced out of the department store boom, growth in America, which started 100 years ago, and department stores went to the downtown areas. Then 50 years ago, they started coming out of the downtown areas into mall properties to anchor malls. And from 1,600 malls that were built around America, today there's 1,000. Over the next 5 to 10 years, that 1,000 will probably go to 500. There's a vast number of reasons for that. But fundamentally, the department store anchored mall of 50 years ago, 40 years ago, is not the project that works today. And I don't think I'm telling any of you something you don't know. It worked for 50 years, but today, that's not what works. And as a consequence of that, there's two choices to be made. One is you invest capital to recreate and reinvent a dominant location, such as Connecticut Post, into what is the iconic project, commercial project for the next 30, 40 years. That's path one. Path two is you don't invest or you can't invest. And unfortunately, that path leads to the 600, 1,600 malls going to 1,000, 1,000 going to 500. Because the nature of the product is such that you have to do one or the other. There isn't, unfortunately, a third option. And in many cases, the reason the decline, and many good mall locations will decline, is because the ownership doesn't have the capital, the time horizon, or the expertise to do what we're proposing to do. And so here, that's the place we're at today. We cannot maintain 1,450,000 square foot shopping center. Today, shopping is a part of what people do, and it is not at all the dominant reason people go out today. So the current situation with Connecticut Post is, as a result of what's happened, even though we've invested in the mall, we've maintained it better than most, but its still value still has declined, and the property taxes we pay to the city and county and schools has declined probably about $700,000-800,000, and will continue to decline unless we can start to do the things that we're asking, which is to reinvest in the entire project to recreate the project. We are investing our capital. In most other communities, we are receiving incentives from the city in order to make our investments, because quite frankly, these investments do not generate tremendous returns. They are in part a way in which you can start recreating the project so that our space that we currently own becomes more valuable. And that is just the way of the world today. And we've got to invest in this project, not in a manner that you would have invested in the past, because there aren't enough tenants today to lease the space that we have. So in every project across the country, what we're proposing is what the 500 malls that are going to remain are going to be doing in various forms, depending upon location, depending upon size of the project, amount of land. But it is bringing a mixed use component, a place where people want to gather and go, not just to shop. They want to go to dine. They want to go and experience art and music and gathering with family. They want to live. They want to work. They want to play, they want to shop, they want to dine, they want to be entertained. This is the formula for what to do. We know what to do. We know how to do it. And I would say Milford is fortunate that we're the owner of the project with USAA, and we have the know-how, we have the desire, we have the passion, we have the commitment, we have the capital, and we have the vision, and we have the time horizon. And those are not easy to come by. I promise, they're not easy to come by. And so what we are asking and what we are doing here is a phased project. We've looked at Connecticut Post as a 10, 15-year redevelopment project. And phase one that is being asked to be supported tonight is what you see here, which is where the Sears building currently sits, which we acquired when Sears vacated, and adding residential, commercial, ground level of the residential, and a significant outdoor activated plaza area that today, this is the new anchor. Where it used to be department stores, this is the anchor today that projects need. They need the place for people to go and sit outside. And what you can't see in this picture is how this park setting will be activated. It will be activated with music, with local bands regularly. It'll be activated with art walks. We'll go to the schools and embrace the schools and performing arts and bring them into this area and have weekly, monthly, a constant flow of new art shows and new music and restaurants and outdoor dining. And that is what is critically important to developing and creating the sense of place where you can bring your family, your kids, grandkids, and enjoy the things that everyone enjoys today in life. So this is phase one. We are already, this visual shows you ultimately what we plan to do, which is a much broader development in removing the wing of the mall that goes from Sears to Macy's and Boscov's in order to create additional outdoor areas, create office, lab sciences, movie studios, any number of uses, medical, university, a campus environment that creates all of the things that I mentioned earlier. This is ultimately the vision that this still leaves 1 million square feet of mall space, of shopping center space. This still leaves Boscov's, Macy's, Target, Dick's, Cinemark, Dave & Buster's, and another 70 shops and restaurants, which is the amenity to all of these uses. I recently read a movie studio is being built in New Haven. Lab sciences are being built in New Haven or West Haven. We want those here. We can't bring those here with the mall sitting on this site. When people drive by, they look at a mall. They're not going to go unless they see what we're doing, unless they see a different project. So doing phase one allows us to start the narrative right now to the community and the larger community outside of New York, outside of this entire trade area, to be a place to anchor these types of uses. A movie studio, an art center, on and on and on. And, campuses for, for tech companies, for whatever we can draw the uses here. Again, it's live, it's work, it's play, it's shop, it's dine, and it's entertain. This is a commercial project. The fact that we're building residential ultimately is a very small part of this entire 80-acre campus. But it is an integral part, and it is the way today, if you go across the country, every one of our projects and every one of any other major mall owner, residential and outdoor areas with restaurants is the first kickoff point for these projects. It draws the worker here. It draws so many of the reasons in which other people want to be here. And so I want to be clear, this is a major commercial project, and we are bringing to you what is an iconic project over the next 10 years that not only will maintain your tax base, will increase your tax base, but I would say even more than that, which obviously that's critically important to the financial aspects of the city of Milford. But this will bring, this will dominate the trade area in this area of Connecticut. And this will be such a community magnet for the community to enjoy. That's what it's about. It's a regional location. There'll be a lot of other uses, but this has to embrace the community, the local art, music, culture, and residents of Milford need to be here. And we're going to make it so desirable that this is where the residents want to come. We're not competing with downtown. We're not competing with other areas of Milford. This is a project that will respect the community. We will respect the culture. And I think if you see in this picture, you will see, as John Nuff mentioned, we listened to the community. We had a project that was not integrated like this is. John Michel's pointing out, we had a residential project kind of off to the side there. It wasn't integrated. It didn't have commercial space on the lower level. It didn't have this plaza that is a community amenity. And we listened to all of you, and we went away and we came back 9 months later, and we've spent a lot of money to create something that I believe, answers your comments and responds to your comments. And we respect your comments. And we appreciate your comments because it is important to us. We want to respect the community. And so we came back and we designed something that I think did provide for all the comments that we heard and allows us to go from phase 1 to phase 2 in a very planned manner. This is a very expensive project. The plaza area cost us $8 to $10 million to build a plaza like that, and there's no return on that plaza. But again, we spent $200 million. We've got $230 million in this project. The benefit you get with us is that we're willing to make a $10 million investment for the future, for the long term. Not everybody, and in fact, I will tell you, hardly anybody is going to do this because unless you're going to own this for a long time, and unless you've got plans for phase 2, and unless you're going to do all the things we're talking about doing, you're not going to invest this kind of money because the return is not financially sound. So I'm going to let John Michelle, unfortunately, I can overstay my welcome at times with my description and vision. But I just can't impress upon everyone enough. This is a pivotal time. We are not only the right group, we are one of the best at this. And we are going to bring something here that you will be tremendously proud of. And I'm positive of that. And we've been hanging around. This is 6 years into this project. And we've made a lot of investments without any commitment from the city at all. We've continued to invest. We haven't been in front of the city asking for things month after month, year after year. We're here now because this is the time. We've either got to get started on this project, or unfortunately, we all are going to turn our back on it because we don't have plan B. There is no plan B. We know what to do. And we are one of the best at it. And we're bringing you the best, the absolute best. Will it satisfy every single person? No. But we're going to do our best to satisfy almost everybody. And we're going to listen. We'll be in the community as we do this, and we'll be enlisting people to talk about how do you want us to embrace the art? How do you want us to embrace the Oyster Festival? How do you want us to do these things? Because it's important. It's important to us. But we've got to get going because these projects they don't sit still. They go forwards or backwards. And again, we're one of the best at it. We can't go attract tenants unless they see us doing this. You can't get, Apple from Trumbull or Cheesecake Factory or whoever else you think we should have here or we would like to have here. They're not coming here unless they see what we're doing. If they don't see it, they're going to say it's a mall. It's what we're not going to make our investment in the mall as Apple if you're not making an investment in the mall, because these are projects that have turned the corner and are not getting better. So if tenants don't see us committed to this project for the long term, they're not going to commit to it. And that's what's happening in America. You have the opportunity to be one of a select number of sites around the nation that gets it right and brings something that you will love, and you will look back and say, wow, that was incredible. We were lucky to partner with Centennial and USAA, and we made the right decision at the right time. So I thank you again for your time very much. We very much look forward to being here for a long time and working with you collaboratively to bring you the best of the best place for you and your families to enjoy. Thank you very much. Turn it over to you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it. Just want to reiterate the point that you just made, that it's vital for the project to draw new tenants to make it vibrant, and this regulation change, this amendment that we're proposing, unlocks the door to that new investment. And that's really what we're here talking about tonight. So just to kind of underscore that, I'm going to move to another slide. Next up are some examples of Centennial's projects that are under construction in other cities. On the right, we've got Vernon Hills, Illinois, 550 units of apartments with 50,000 square feet of ground level retail, coupled with a highly animated and amenitized plaza it's very similar to what we're proposing in Milford, although they each have their own unique characteristics. On the left is our project in Aurora, Illinois, 310 units of apartments. This project did not support the same ground level retail that we're doing in Vernon Hills and proposing in Milford, but we are now seeing a resurgence in the leasing activity on the pad area where the former Sears was because of the investment that we're making in the apartments. These investments that we're making are critical for the mall, keeping the existing mall tenants and for attracting new tenants. We're seeing a lot of evidence of the results of this stuff by the investments and the reaction that the leasing community is having, particularly in comparison to our competitors who are not able to show the same level of investment momentum. Next up is a proposed breakdown for the project. I know everyone is interested in what is the residential community consist of, and it's approximately 135 one-bedroom apartments, 135 two-bedroom units, and 30 three-bedroom units. That is all subject to further refinement, assuming we can move forward in the process. Sorry. Wanted to just give some stats to animate Stephen's points. Project will create an estimated 1.215 million in new combined real and personal property taxes. It's a 28% increase from where it is today. Will generate 1.2 million in local consumer spending and 3.48 million in wages in the first year, estimating 372 jobs during construction and 117 sustained jobs. Finally, just reiterating the point of the taxes for the last decade at least, Milford, Connecticut Post has been Milford's largest taxpayer. And in 2019, the mall contributed nearly $4 million in taxes to the community. Finally, I wanted to take a few minutes to discuss Centennial's sustainability program. It's called SEE Centennial, SEE, stands for Sustainability, Efficiency, Environment. And we are extremely proud of the program, and we know it's important to the city. We've heard that members of the city are interested in what we do and how we do. So I'll take a minute to talk about the mission, which is a comprehensive energy and sustainability initiative, which guides operational activities to conserve energy and to use resources responsibly. This applies to the day-to-day management of the mall, and it applies to all aspects of our future development program. The 4 key opportunities to further our SEE Centennial goals in the development are listed on the slide. 1, green space. We are intending to create a modern park with drought-resistant native vegetation, stormwater strategies, and we will evaluate additional green infrastructure. 2, construction. We're highly sensitive to the environment, and we will be as we demolish materials such as asphalt, bricks, roofing, and we'll recycle these materials. Traffic and parking. We intend to provide ample alternatives and complements to traditional vehicular parking. These will include EV charging, ride share, bike parking, bike share, as well as public transit accessibility. These are all critical components to our modern thinking. And finally, energy use, which will be mitigated by sourcing renewable energy options and installing state-of-the-art energy saving lighting and heating and cooling systems. Before turning this back over to John, there's some fantastic stats that I'm always proud to share. So I'm gonna take a second to give them to you all tonight. Between 2015 and 2020, Centennial achieved a 32% reduction in energy use across a 7 enclosed mall portfolio. During that same 5-year period, nearly 12 million gallons of water were saved. It's the equivalent of 18 Olympic-sized pools. 11,726 tons of waste were diverted from landfills. 12,691 tons of CO2 emissions were reduced. 58,436 gallons of gas were saved because of our EV charging stations. All really remarkable accomplishments that we seek to improve on and intend to improve on, both operationally and with the development. With that, I'll turn this back over to John.
Thanks, John. The last thing we want to do, Mr. Chairman, is just to quickly run through the regulation amendment itself, with a special focus on those areas of the regulations that were changed from our last application. So if you recall, a year ago, we talked about how the shopping center design district regulations, the uses that are permitted by special permit, already have a very broad envelope, to maximize the opportunities at the mall. But nonetheless, we still saw some opportunities to expand the types of uses, but also the opportunity to respond to the comments that we heard from the commission. So what you see here is section 3.9.2 is the list of special permit uses. What we've done is to clean up the language of 3921. In 3922, we again make multifamily dwelling units are permitted subject to special permit approval, and they currently are permitted in the SCDD, but now only in a mixed use building, which is one of the things that you spoke to us about last time. 3927, there's sort of a mishmash of restaurants and eating places, and we decided to help consolidate those just for simplicity. You note that restaurants are allowed to have outdoor dining currently. I'm not sure what the distinction is under the regs between eating places and restaurants and fast food. We just want to make sure that all those are permitted in our zone, and all of them are permitted with outdoor dining, because certainly that's one of the things we envision for the plaza area. So the next slide is a continuation of some of the new special permit uses. Daycare, schools of any manner, shape, form, whether it's a Yukon satellite school or anything like that. We want to create those opportunities, both large and small. We list recreational cooking, anything to make the center more vibrant and interesting. Library, community center. The next one, 39221. This is limited to 5,000 square feet. It really addresses the request by the city for making provision for incubator space, understanding that there may be some types of uses like that where they actually may need to do some assembling or manufacturing. And we made sure that this is only taking place indoors and a maximum of 5,000 square feet. And the last is planned elderly. We don't have any specific plans for that, but again, just trying to expand the envelope of permitted uses. Next slide, please. New accessory uses, recreational buildings that would be associated with the multifamily residential, swimming pool, clubhouse, lounge area, exercise, of course. And then 3938 is what Stephen was referring to in terms of outdoor entertainment, whether it's strolling musicians or a magician or a clown or a theater group or a choir at holiday time. We want to make sure that that was specifically permitted as an accessory use in the zone along the plaza. In terms of some more nuts and bolts area requirements, these are the changes we're proposing for mixed use buildings with residential units. Minimum acreage of 4 acres. I know we talked about this a little bit last time. And the whole idea is that the residential is going to be fully integrated into the mall, such that if there were a separate parcel on which the multifamily would be located, it literally would be invisible. It's merely here for the convenience of, should there be financing or another partnership arrangement with another entity, it just helps facilitate that. The other bulk requirements are similar to what is permitted in the shopping center design district now, but what just helps facilitate, if we do create a separate parcel for the multifamily, it is applicable to that. The buffer strip is just something that's a carryover from your existing regulations. And then the most important thing is the plaza area is that we are required to have meaningful and contiguous open space at grade that the all members of the public can utilize. The building requirements in 3943, design is compatible with and in harmony with the general character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood, which is a typical requirement in your regulations. Again, mixed use buildings with multifamily must be proximate to and integrated into both the plaza and the mall itself. So, we don't and cannot connect the buildings, the multifamily residential, because, you know, we envision sort of a thoroughfare between the multifamily and the mall itself, but you'll be directly proximate across a, you know, fairly narrow, you know, causeway or access way that allows access to the rear of the site, but it'd be directly proximate to the multifamily and the plaza and the mall itself. We're proposing maximum heights of the multifamily mixed-use buildings of 5 stories or 85 feet in height. David had suggested a modification to our language, and we're happy to accommodate that. And of course, the mall itself and other uses that do not contain multifamily can go up to 10 stories or 120 feet. Next slide. Spacing, you know, we talked about this last time. It's just to, you know, help facilitate, you know, the sort of both phase 1 and phase 2 vision that Stephen had discussed. Certainly, you may have some taller buildings. We want to make sure that they can be grouped in a logical and aesthetic fashion. And then we also have a requirement that for any mixed-use buildings that includes multifamily, we talked about that transparency. We also want to make sure that those retail and restaurant uses face in a direction that makes sense, and that means facing either the plaza or Boston Post Road to help create that streetscape. Next, you know, again, the maximum number of units in the entire shopping center design district will be 300. I think we did the calculation last time. The regulation currently is a little bit hard to decipher in terms of the maximum number of units, because it talks about bedrooms per acre, and we estimated that you could probably get 300 units under the current regulation, but we wanted to make that crystal clear that it'd be a maximum of 300 units in the entire zone. John Michelle just discussed about the sustainability. Centennial is obviously doing this voluntarily. We are proposing to make it a requirement of any redevelopment of the center. Next. You know, we included a number of design considerations. I'm sorry, John, you went one. There you go. Again, we want to make sure that all the buildings, including the mixed-use multifamily, are extremely attractive and have that sidewalk transparency that I discussed before, and also to make sure that there is a attractive and you know, area for pedestrians to visit, whether you're visiting the shops and restaurants or just enjoying the plaza itself. And then we also carried over some of the same parking changes that we had last time, with one change. So with regard to the multifamily units, we're proposing 1.5 spaces per unit, which is consistent with your other areas in the city and under your regulations in the various corridor design districts. And then last time we proposed 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross leasable area. We decided, and we think that there is plenty of support for 3 per 1,000, but just for a little bit of comfort, we raised that to 3.5 spaces of per 1,000 square feet of gross leasable area. Currently, we are required to park based upon gross building area. And I think, as we all know, anyone who's driven by the center at any time in the recent past understands that there is a wild surplus of parking on the site, because we're parking for a lot of empty space, frankly, all the common space we're parking for. So it doesn't make much sense, and hasn't made much sense over the years, to park for gross building area. So we're proposing to park for gross leasable area. And I think David's memo supports that as well. So that's a quick rundown of the regulation amendment itself. Stephen and John gave you the bases for those regulation amendments. I hope you appreciate and acknowledge the work that Stephen and John have put into reflecting the comments that you've made, and understanding and taking to heart your concerns, and making sure that there isn't an island of residential off in the parking lot, but that, you know, to help ensure that the intended effect of bringing residential to the mall is ensured by its proximity to the mall and to the plaza. So we're all happy to answer any questions. We have other members of the design team around the call should anything come up, but that ends our presentation, and we look forward to hearing your comments and questions.
Hey, well, listen, thank you all for your time and effort on this application. This is a public hearing, so I would invite any member of the public to announce yourself either by waving or electronically. David will be the gatekeeper, and if you would please state your name and address for the record. There'll be no order if you're for or against. You'll just come up when you wave your hand, and if you would try to keep your comments to around 3 minutes. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak?
If there is, please wave your hand in your picture, or you can use your electronic hand. Okay, we see Donna Defco.
Yes, hi, good evening. Donna Dutko, 236 Buckingham Avenue. So I'm gonna comment on a few things, and I think that my biggest concern was maximum height of 10 stories doesn't have any parameters in it to restrict what goes in that 10 stories. Am I reading that wrong? Could that be 10 stories of residential?
So this is a public hearing, Donna. So you can make your statement. It's not a question and answer session.
Okay,
But I will tell you that the current zoning regulations allow 10 stories at the mall with all the uses that are there currently.
Yeah, so Donna, you can go ahead and ask questions. We'll write them down, and we'll get you answers one way or another.
thank you. And then I think it was 5.1.3. And it was design considerations. I thought that the language was vague. They said high quality. I don't know that that's an acceptable design standard. I think you have to be very specific. High quality can be very subjective. So I think that needs to be honed in and be, you want high quality, spell out what specifically it's going to be. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you much. Appreciate your concern. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board?
I am scanning, Mr. Chair. I don't see anyone raising their hands. I don't see any electronic hands. Going once, do we have anyone who wants to raise their hand and speak? Going twice, I do not see anyone. Third time, nobody. Mr. Chair, there's nobody else.
Okay. Very good. So the applicant has what they call rebuttal. I don't know if there's much to rebut, but you can, if you wish, answer and address the questions of Ms. Dutko.
Sure, happy to. As David pointed out, currently the regulations for the shopping center design district permit a maximum height of 120 feet or 10 stories. We have proposed that any mixed use building that contains multifamily residential is limited to 5 stories or 85 feet in height. So I hope that clarifies the height question. And the design considerations, I mean, it's really hard to legislate design. We need to come back with a special permit application to get approved, anything that you've seen this evening. And so I think that's something that the commission can point to. It's not inconsistent with your other regulations, including for the MCDD, the downtown district that talks about, a high quality design. I don't think that we can try to legislate what that is precisely, but I think it's something that the commission can use. Listen, I think that Centennial and Connecticut Post is going to do an absolutely terrific job, and you're going to be extremely pleased and impressed by the type of architectural and hardscape and landscape treatment that they'll be proposing as part of phase 1 and phase 2. But to the extent that you think differently, then it's a regulation that you can point to and say, hey guys, I think you need to step up your game in this one area, whatever the realms that it might be, whether it's architecture or landscaping. So I frankly, I don't know how you could legislate it any better.
Well, and this is Stephen Levin again. Let me just add to Chairman Cush, to the comment. I think, as John is saying, and I understand, I understand the comment. There can be, high quality, first class, a lot of those terms can be spoken, and what exactly does that mean? The reality is there's no way to really write down exactly what that is and what is going to be done. But I can assure you this, that we are going to come to the commission. We are going to come to P&Z. We're going to submit our plans. We're going to work collaboratively. This is not, we're going to walk in and say, this is what we're doing, take it or leave it. I mean, that's not who we are. That's not how we operate. And it's just that it doesn't work that way. First of all, we don't do anything that isn't going to be of a nature, quality, and design. Again, I mean, we're $250 million into this project. It's not, we're not buying a piece of land and building a residential project. This is a probably $400 to $500 million project when we get done with it. And so it's got to be done right. It has to be done in a manner that is respected for its quality and for its presentation. But we're going to work with the city. That's who we are. And we're going to come in and show you what our design is, and we're going to work. And just as we've taken comments now, we're going to listen. But quality can be a lot of different things. But I can assure you that is not going to be a concern at the end of the day. That should be the concern that we all have, is that you're questioning the quality of what we're doing, because that'll be a 1-second discussion. It just isn't going to happen. I appreciate the comment, because you don't know who we are. But again, I would only ask people to recognize that we've made a $250 million investment in the community of Milford. So, and what we've done at the mall and how we've operated the mall for 5.5 years should speak for some degree of who we are. That should give you some comfort that we are not going to present something to you that isn't going to be acceptable. But at the end of the day, we're going to work with the community to make sure that we listen, and we're going to produce something that is going to be very, very well received. That's just unquestioned.
Thank you. Okay, so we don't really, unless Ms. Ditko wants to ask another question. She has another bite at the apple. She's still here.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I guess we can, if anyone has any reason why we shouldn't close the public hearing from the commission, please let me know.
Mr. Quish, do we not
Oh,
get
no,
to
he wasn't. I'm
just ask
sorry.
questions?
Yeah, exactly. Questions or comments from the board as part of the public hearing. I stand corrected. So I would open up questions or comments from the board.
Quish, if I go first, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is to Attorney Nuff. So we get, for purpose of our record, again, most of the members, or at least half of the members, are not part of the Planning and Conservation Development Subcommittee. So we've not seen this prior presentation, but what we were provided for, and just want to recognize this is what you believe you were given, was a Connecticut Post Limited Partnership text change narrative July 2nd of 2021 that was received by the Office of Planning. There was also a Gorman and York 2020 report, which apparently we had already seen a year ago. There was the text changes. And the last thing that we didn't see, which you presented tonight, was the PowerPoint. And I'm just asking if you remember, or if you knew that the PowerPoint was submitted to Mr. Sulkus and the Office of Planning and Zoning for our review? That was the first question I have.
This evening's PowerPoint was not, but as you may know, Mr. Sally, that we're not under the COVID executive order any further. So that was not supplied prior to this evening. It's now part of the public record, but everything else you indicated is part of the record, of course.
So what it looks like, just I want to concentrate on the PowerPoint presentation. It looks like the exact same thing we saw last year when we denied this application.
Well,
If you disagree with
no.
that, please tell me where the differences are.
Oh, huge differences. I mean, and we can go back to the PowerPoint, but we showed the slide that indicated where the multifamily was proposed originally, which is sort of, I refer to it as an island out in the parking lot over where the Sears Tile and Lube building is. And so you see where the, on the right-hand side, that was the proposed residential a year ago. But as I indicated, we've made important changes to the regulation that requires us to incorporate the multifamily residential with the mall itself, because we are required to have the multifamily mixed-use buildings directly proximate to both the mall and to the plaza. So we believe that this is a substantial change that responds to the commission's concerns voiced last year and during our discussions with the POCD committee.
Yeah,
On the Gorman and York, excuse me, sir, I was talking to Attorney Knuff. The Gorman and York report, has there been any update? You said you spent money, and according to this text change narrative, Centennial can reconvene with nationally recognized design team, develop a comprehensive plan. Have you updated the Gorman and York? Because I'm concerned about students, parking spots, and the money that was involved. A very substantial report, I think it's 20 some odd pages. Have you updated that report from when we last saw this?
No, the Gorman and York report is the same that was submitted last year.
And this probably would go to the gentleman that spoke about the mall that's out in Illinois. I think it was called the Hawthorne Mall. Can you give us, and I know we talked very appropriately, thought it was a great project, but what's the time frame that's been involved there? Because that's a project that he claims is in different stages. And what time did it start? Was it 20 years ago it started? Was it 6 months? And how long is the project expected to go off? Somebody could comment about that, please.
Yeah, sure. This is John Michelle once again, and the project started an entitlement process approximately 2 years ago. It was drawn, permitted, and approved, and site work began in December of 2020. Vertical construction started in May of 2021, and it will start turning over to multifamily residents in the beginning of 2023, and the retail will open also at the beginning of 2023.
Approximately a 4-year project. Is that phase one, or is that the whole completed project that we see now on the PowerPoint?
This is phase one right here, sir. It's this building and this building, which represents 304 units of multifamily, 50,000 square feet of retail, a $8 to $10 million plaza area, all similar to what we're proposing. Phase two was entitled with phase one for another 240 apartment units, which will be built after phase one gets absorbed.
And lastly, appreciate the presentation. Disruption of mall traffic. I don't have a way of seeing how the entrance of your mall is in Illinois, but we really only have very few entrances. And in the construction project that you're proposing, would you comment upon the impact for people to get in and out of the mall if they're losing several entrances and or exits in the Milford one?
Sure. And one of the nice things about this site, the Sears site in particular, it's segregated on the plan east of the plan. The entrance here would be blocked off with construction gates, and we have national contractors who do this work around the country. Malls are being continually redeveloped. It's a huge part of our planning process. We do not want to disrupt our customers any more than the bare minimum. Obviously, change needs to be it needs to be effectuated, but it's done in the most professional manner with the city and with a bunch of extremely seasoned national general contractors who do this sort of fix the airplane while it's flying type of work around the country, specifically regionally, national companies with regional offices, so that we adhere to best practices and local construction standards. And you better believe that we have a mall manager who works for the same company. We all report up to Stephen, and that's someone who has my cell phone and has the construction superintendent, project manager, vice president, executive vice president's phone number, so that when there are problems, and we do this time and time again, that the construction doesn't supersede the traffic always supersedes the construction, and it's a huge part of our development business.
Yeah, and I just want to add that of course, this is not an application for the development itself. This is just a regulation amendment. And, we'd be happy to get into the nuts and bolts of that, assuming this application is approved when we bring forward our special permit application.
Correct, and I understand that, but if you would agree with me, Attorney Nuff, that if we agree to the zone change, the special permit has, basically, we must agree with you and grant it. If not, we have to come up with additional reasons. So.
Can I just add one comment? Is it appropriate?
Sure, sir.
Thank you. The one comment I'd like to add as well, and your point's very well taken, because we are extremely sensitive to the operations of the mall and will be throughout this entire process. But we also have to deal with Macy's and Boscov's, who have rights, and Target, and we have to get them to agree to how we will make sure that traffic is circulated and that their store is minimally impacted. So we have to show them what we're doing. We have to show them how we're going to do this, as well as we would be showing the planning and zoning. So it's a very good point, but it's one that we take very seriously, and Macy's will as well, and Boscov's will as well, and Target will as well. So we've got to make sure that this is done in a manner that maintains the traffic at the mall for all of these major tenants, as well as the interior tenants.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. The last question I have, and I guess this is through you, Attorney Nuff, it may be answered by somebody else, but we saw the project you had last year, and a question I have, which some people have objected to it in writing, is why would people come to this particular area where it's completely next to a highway? It's really closed off by itself. Why would they want to live in this area, even with the amenities you're talking about, even if you have music? Doesn't seem to be a lot of touch with the rest of the community, because it is in the mall. Somebody could address that, please.
My guess is that several of us may address that. And I will confess, listen, I think you and I are probably the same generation, we'll say. And, would this be a place that I would want to move at this time of my life? Probably not. But, I don't speak for the multitude of people who are looking for, a place to live, particularly, younger people, whether in their 20s or 30s. There's a lot of projects that have been constructed in Milford and elsewhere, very close to highways. Look at the success of the project at Exit 36. I think a lot of people at that time that was approved probably had the same thought. You're going to be behind a grocery store. You're right next to 95. Why would someone want to live there? And it is fully tenanted. And I think that's the case in many locations.
Yeah, and let me say, I think it's a larger shift that is taking place throughout the country. Really, the urbanization of locations that, while this is on the freeway, and even that in of itself, while it does appear to be a location that because you're so used to it as this mall, that it appears to be this location that is not conducive to living. But culturally, and particularly for a generation of people that these projects are being built all over the country, and the mall sites are the most dominant locations that residential is being built on. And we wouldn't build it and USA wouldn't put money in if the market did not dictate that we would be able to lease this project. But it is an urban feel in a more, in not a downtown area. It is the ability to live in a walkable environment. And it is culturally what is happening around the country. And as John says, and I myself, I mean, I'm 68 years old. I wouldn't live here, but my daughter would, my son would, my nephews will. And people that work, we're building projects where people live here and they walk to the hospitals that they work at, or they walk to the stores, or they walk to Macy's, so it is a concept that is newer, if you will. It is something that has taken hold, and there are projects being built around the country, in this way. And frankly, they're being built, and many of them are being built without the kind of amenity that we're creating here that makes it the most desirable place. It's not viewed as people living at a mall. I know that's what it sounds like today, but it won't be that way, and it isn't the way the people that live here view it. But you've got to do it right. In many cases, at least we believe you need to do it right and create the environment that is compelling. But I understand the question, but it is really an American trend that has taken hold. And again, we're building these projects all over on our sites, and they're being, they're leasing up, and it is a desirable way that a certain demographic wants to live.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Through Mr. Nuff to the chair, I have no further questions at this point. I may have some comments after listening to other board members, but I have no more questions at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Nuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I have a couple comments and then maybe a question or two. First of all, I think the demographics in Milford and the aim of this project, I think, really dovetail nicely, and I think this can be really a good project. I think it could be a regional destination, but obviously there's a lot of mileage between here and there. One of the things on the 300 apartments, one of the, I think, I'm sorry, got distracted there. 830G or affordable housing is always an issue. I think we need to consider that when we look at the 300 apartments. That's just a comment. You guys take that into consideration. I'm wondering, there's 1 million square feet in this project. I'm wondering how that compares to, say, Trumbull, just for comparison's sake. And also,
I'm sorry.
No, we'll let John finish.
Yeah, I'll be brief.
Time, whatever you want.
I think what would be critical to public acceptance of this project would be some early implementation of that beautiful plaza, and so we can have some events, not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but I think that will go a long way to create some goodwill. Now, the real question I had was with the industrial element in this. I wasn't aware that the city had asked for some capacity for industrial And I guess it was in conjunction with what medical, I'm not really clear on that, but I would be very wary of implementing any industrial into this project. I don't see where that fits. And maybe you can, Stephen or John, explain that a little.
Happy to, that's easy.
Yeah, okay, good. And the last, I did have a question also, 3.9.2.11. You want to strike the public hearing for indoor places of entertainment, amusement, recreation, or assembly such as theaters, billiard rooms, bowling alleys, or other similar indoor uses. I'm just wondering what the intent is on that. It's
Really easy to explain.
okay, please. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's my
Right,
take on it. I think it's a great project, but we do need to do this right, as has been alluded to. So
Thanks, Mr. Mortimer. Happy to answer the questions. The striking the public hearing requirement, that's already listed in the special permit uses, so is merely redundant. So rather than, I mean, in some cases, we took the opportunity to clean up some of the provisions, just like we did with the restaurant and eating places, that it was just simply redundant because every special permit requires a public hearing. So that use will always require a public hearing. Somehow it found its way into the regulation. We took the opportunity to clean it up. If you want to keep it in there just to recertify the requirement of public hearing, we obviously have no objection. It was just to clean up a redundancy. In terms of industrial uses, so I think it's important to look at 3.9.5, which is prohibited uses. And those are really what you're talking about in terms of industrial uses. What we're proposing is that if there was a startup or there's an incubator space where someone had a great idea of, I don't know, making bracelets, making some other sort of thing to sell at retail, we want to make sure that there's an opportunity, for a enterprising person to have space to do that. And what we are saying is that it can be a maximum of 5,000 square feet, which is really tiny in the context of a 1.4 million square foot mall. And it has to be associated with this other sort of startup business. So we're certainly not proposing any sort of major industrial use. This would be just merely the ability to facilitate someone's great idea for a new product, and maybe they need to do some small either fabricating or manufacturing or assembling. They'd have the opportunity to do that in one of the spaces.
Yeah.
We don't think that's going to be a terribly large component, but we want to provide people that opportunity.
Yeah, and let me add just a couple of comments. I understand your comment, and really industrial is not our intent either, in the sense in which I think you're thinking about it and the way I think about it, quite frankly. I think what John just described to me is really an entrepreneurial incubator concept that really is not an industrial business. So I'm not sure that we don't mean industrial like we're putting warehouses on this project, because I agree with you, that's not what we're looking to do. So that's number one. Number two, Connecticut Post is the largest mall in the state of Connecticut. It is 1,450,000 square feet. It was expanded 6 times over the years since Westfield bought it in the 1960s period. It's the largest mall in the state. I believe Trumbull is about 1,300,000 square feet.
No, Steve, it's about between 1 million and 1.1.
Okay, so it's 300,000 to 400,000 square feet smaller than Connecticut Post, and Meriden is maybe a million. So it's also 450,000 square feet. This mall is the last expansion that Westfield did was a 450,000 square foot expansion on this mall, which brought it to 1,450,000 square feet, the largest mall in Connecticut. A million square feet will probably be one of the largest malls. It'll probably be in the top 100 largest malls in America in 6 or 7 or 8 years. at 1 million square feet.
And Mr. Mortimer, I just want to make sure we answered all your questions. I was taking notes, but did we miss anything?
Well, I did make a comment about the early implementation of some public favorable activity. Is that baked into the plan?
I'm certain that's something we can take a look at if we get to the next stage of submitting a special permit application.
I mean, we
I think
want
at the end of the day, all we're looking for is the opportunity. I mean, that's what this regulation amendment, this application is about. Is looking for the opportunity to do some of the wonderful things that Stephen has described.
Yeah, that's really just my opinion, you know, take it or leave it. I just think in order to win over some people, that would be a good way to go.
Understood. Thank you.
I had a quick question, Mr.
Hi,
Chair.
Carl.
So the applicant mentioned in their answer to Commissioner Sadi about leveraging or taking advantage of the demographics for the younger demographics for the residential piece of this. It is my understanding, or what I've known as, are they considering the concept of the younger generation working remotely and not taking up residence in these type of areas and working in places such as vacation homes and not spending that 2 or 12 months lease and just finding residential elsewhere. In saying that, what happens if this site or resident doesn't succeed? What becomes of the site, and what are the plans, or such as a plan B for that?
Well, thank you for the question. I think that, again, I would like to think that, you know, one level of comfort, again, is that we are investing our own capital. USAA is a fiduciary for billions of dollars of state and pension fund capital. They are the most strict and best fiduciary in the country, at least certainly up the top group. So Centennial is investing its own money alongside of USAA, but certainly USAA is the majority partner. So the point being is that I think if you look at the track record, you will see that there's very few projects in the history of USAA that have not been, you know, successful because the level of due diligence. So what I would say is we do a lot of work to make sure nothing is 1,000% certain, but we do a lot of work to make sure that we are building and investing in a project that has been vetted, has been, you know, looked at, approved by significant investment committees and people to make sure that that it is a project that will be successful. Doesn't mean that there isn't a chance it can't be, obviously, and I don't want to indicate that it's impossible, but I do want to stress that it makes a big difference with the type of investor you have who is looking to invest their own money in a project and of the caliber that USAA is. And we don't put just 5% equity or 10% equity or 15% equity. I mean, we're putting probably 50% equity into $100 million project. We're going to put $50 million. So there's a lot of margin for it maybe not being as successful as we hope it is, but we're taking the risk that this project is successful, and it is integral to the redirection of the larger project of the $250 million Connecticut Post Mall that we're looking to reimagine into a very vibrant, successful project. So we do a lot of work to make sure that the project, the demand is there. And if we don't think it is, we're not going to build it. But we wouldn't be in front of you if we didn't think it was. I think that, you know, obviously if projects aren't successful, you know, they can go back to the bank. Depends on who the developer is, but I can tell you this, USAA in its 30 or 40 year history has never given a project, they've never defaulted on a loan, and they have $30 billion of assets around the world. They've never defaulted on a loan and never given a project back to a bank. So I think that making the bet with them and with us in a secondary position is a good bet to make.
And Mr. Moore, you know, to your question regarding the demographics themselves, we also have Scott Pollock, who's a principal with Arrow Street, does a lot of multifamily residential, is a terrific architect, and he just wanted to speak to the demographic question as well.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Scott Pollock. As John said, I'm an architect, principal at Arrow Street. We do a lot of housing and multifamily housing, and we've done a number of projects like this across the country. Your point about sort of the nature of the change in the demographics and what people want out of their housing is absolutely true, sir. But actually, this project falls right into actually what we are seeing in the trends, because what we're seeing is a certain amount of exodus is too strong a word, a moving out of younger professionals from dense urban areas like Boston, like New York, like Hartford, even like New Haven, to the communities that they grew up in. But when you're in your 20s and your early 30s, probably actually don't own a second house that you can move to, but many are actually wanting to move back into the communities that they grew up in, but they neither can afford a single family home, nor may there actually be single family homes available to them. So that when we do a number of these kinds of projects, both in New England and actually a number of them on Long Island, what we're finding is that many of the people who move into these are young professional couples who grew up in communities and really just want to go home, but are not ready for that point in life in which they're responsible to take care of a house. They don't necessarily have children yet. And so these kinds of on the edges of sort of single family communities that people grew up in is very much the desirable kind of location that we see that people are moving into. In addition to which, I'll tell you, and it surprised us in a number of the projects, in particular in a project that we did on Long Island, what we found is people who lived there were either young couples who grew up in the community, wanted to move back but didn't want a house yet, and then often their parents who would then trade houses with their kids as they started to have children so that they could grow up in the community, their grandchildren would grow up in the communities that their children had grown up in. And that allowed them to stay in the community, but provided a set of amenities, the ability to not have to get into your car every time you want to go have something to drink or do some quick shopping, have outdoor space that you can access and use without having to get into your car or walk along a street to get to, but remain within your community. And I have to say, you know, I wish there had been places like this for my father in New Jersey as he was getting older, that he could have stayed in the town he'd lived in for 50 years. But he really should not have been in a house by himself anymore. And so while the nature of sort of housing is changing, we're finding that units are starting to get a little bigger again so that people do have that study so that they can work from home at least a few days of the week are changing. It's exactly actually like communities like Milford that people are going, yeah, I grew up there. I wanna actually live there again, but I'm not ready to live in single family houses. And malls, by their very nature of having really good access, good utilities, good location, easy access to highways and other stuff, are highly attractive to people who want to get in and out sometimes, but then also don't want to get back into their car later on.
Thank you, Scott. And obviously, there's a lot of enthusiasm on our side, for this project and for our application, and particularly the question of the multifamily. And so we appreciate the question. And I think what it points to is the commission is as concerned about the success of the project as we are. And I think that sort of collaborative spirit we would hope to will continue forward, this evening and through various phases of the mall redevelopment.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Dave,
Castagnoli,
Dave, are we going to see we're going to see what's actually going to be built there before it gets built? In other words, I think it was during the POCD meeting, someone asked about a building, and Mr. Levin stated that building may be not that for that use, like a medical building. It may be for some other use. So how do we know what's actually going to get built there?
yeah, so what, whatever, if any zone change happens,
Right.
then the next step would be a full-blown site plan review and special permit. So
Okay,
at that point, it would come back to the board for our review, although our review would be somewhat limited based on what the zone change
What the
is,
zone
right?
change
So
is,
if there's something in the zone change that you think should be there to help make it a better project, we can think that up and give them some advice. Or if there's something in the zone change that we think is going to be a harm in the long run, we could ask for that adjustment or whatever during this first process. But the second phase of anything being approved by the board would be a full-blown public hearing, site plan review, and special permit application.
Okay,
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Peggy?
Yeah, this is Mark.
Unmute, Peggy.
This is Mark. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Mark, you go next.
Sorry. Just some comments. I don't know. All I see here is some really nice renderings with 300 apartments plopped down next to the mall. That's what I see. That's my opinion. I agree with Joe Castagnoli. I'd like to see a real plan, not only for phase 1, but for phase 2, 3, 4, the entire plan. Like, I think we'd have a lot more, you might get us to see the whole plan and say, okay, that's the whole plan. Like, what happens after phase 1? None of us know now. I actually have an actual question. If what we change here or agree to change, does this open the door to more apartments down the road because of what we're going to approve now on this piece of property? Like, they're saying, oh yeah, well, it's 300 now, but we go ahead and approve this. And then on net phase 2, 3, or 4, all of a sudden there's 400 more, 300 more, 500 more apartments. So I don't know what the answer to that is. But I'd like to see the full plan in full before we do anything. And right now, the only thing I see, and I looked at some of their other renderings, and I looked at their website, and I checked out some of the news. For example, the here's a news article: apartments coming to former Sears sites at 2 iconic Chicagoland malls. Basically, it's a mall with apartments plopped in next to it. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. I'll just answer one thing, is that what's in front of us, the zone change, limits the number of apartments in the entire district to 300. Now, again, it doesn't preclude somebody, whether a new mall owner comes in at one time and comes in for another regulation change and asks for another 300 or another 3,000. So that would then be addressed by the future commission or board. But again, those are the questions that you asked, and I would ask, John, give an opportunity to you to answer those.
Sure. Thank you for the questions. With regard to the maximum number of units, we chose 300 specifically, but we also put a cap on it. And here's the reason why. We didn't want to leave it open-ended. So what, the scenario that you proposed, that we come back with another 400, in order for us to do that, we would have to go through another regulation amendment. We wanted to make sure that this commission had the legislative discretion. Now, forgive me for going into the legal weeds for 30 seconds, but when you are operating in your legislative capacity, which is what you're doing with the regulation amendments, you have broad discretion. You have broad discretion on this application, and you would have broad discretion on any future change to the regulations that allow more than 300 units. So you have complete control beyond, if you were to approve this tonight, you are not setting a precedent for the future that would obligate the commission to approve another 300 or 200 or even one additional multifamily unit. You are approving these 300 units. You are setting no precedent of any kind. In terms of show us phase 1 and phase 2, all we're looking for in this application is the opportunity to do just that. We're talking a lot about this regulation amendment and how crucial it is to the future of the mall. And I don't mean to minimize that, because that is 100% true. But at the same time, if you are simply looking at the language of the changes that we're proposing, they're really quite modest. As I indicated, the special permit uses in the shopping center design district are actually quite broad. There's lots of things that we can do. The major change that we are making is simply the reformatting of the type of multifamily is permitted. Right now, multifamily is permitted in sort of a garden style apartment. I don't think there's anyone who wants to live in a garden style apartment in a new development. All we're asking for is to reformat the multifamily, the permitted multifamily use in a manner that meets the marketplace and meets people's expectations, but also do it in a way that responds to the commission's questions and concerns raised over the past year, which is to integrate those uses into the mall, integrate the multifamily use with the plaza, and integrate other uses in with the multifamily. Because what we are describing, what Stephen has described eloquently in terms of what his vision for the mall is with the plaza and multifamily, this is no different than downtown Milford, is no different than portions of New Haven, portions of Fairfield, where you have multifamily over retail and restaurant. I don't think anyone would describe those instances as popping down residential next to the mall. It is creating a vibrancy, creating a streetscape, creating a vision, a feel that you would experience, if you're a visitor or a tenant, at one of the units, if you're visiting one of those restaurants or shops, and you would feel that. One of the things that as we, work really hard to put together these presentations as a way to make sure that we're conveying exactly what it is that, the vision is sometimes a site plan doesn't do a very good job of doing, because we don't experience spaces at 20,000 feet. We experience them on the sidewalk, as we walk along, as we experience other people. We always showed you one image of that, of some people sitting outside and enjoying a meal outside. But what this plaza will do and what that retail will do, yes, next to the mall, underneath multifamily residential units, is going to create an attractive space, a vibrancy that doesn't currently exist. So I would object to the description of it as plopping down residential next to the mall. It is creating a special place that Stephen's committed to. He's done it before, and that frankly, we can experience in other locations throughout the state and throughout the country that are places that people are really drawn to. And that's the vision, is to create a place that people are drawn to, whether as a customer, a diner, or as a tenant.
Well, and
Thank you.
And let me add to that, if I may, because I also and I will accept the fact that it is hard, to look at renderings, and to listen to people and, you know, what are you really going to do? But I do object to the fact that even the rendering, I don't know how that looks like plopping down apartments next to a mall. We are, maybe the first vision we brought to you a year ago that was dislocated from the mall without a plaza and without shops and restaurants on the ground level would be more of just putting an apartment project on a mall. And, you know, we heard that, and we, while our ultimate vision of where we're going would not have been different, but at the end of the day, we want to be responsive. And so we came back with something that is, again, it is way more than just building an apartment project. We're spending a lot of money to do this, a tremendous amount of money to build these apartments with this plaza integrated into a mall. And the way we're doing it is certainly will not be just plopping down an apartment project, nor are we doing that. I would be happy to meet you in Chicago and walk our project with you in Vernon Hills and see if that's how you feel when you're on the ground walking our project and what we're doing. We'd be more than happy to walk you through that project. That's not what we do, and that's not what we're doing anywhere that we're doing it. That wouldn't work for us. And I mean, I again, I think you know, we are fiscally responsible people. I mean, we just aren't going to do something just to spend $150 million. It doesn't make any sense. As John said, we're at a crossroads. We're asking for the opportunity to start reimagining the mall. Would we love to do an entire, you know, $250, $300 million development that was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4? Of course we would, but no one in America is doing that because we've still got Macy's sitting at the mall there. We've still got Boscov's there. We're constrained by, if you look at this visual, we have to move through a process to ultimately get to the recreation. No different, by the way, than this mall was expanded 6 different times over the course of 30 years. It didn't look like this 30 years ago. It was 6 times this mall was changed. And these are battleships. You can't just move them. And there's tenants, there's REAs, there's other owners. These are massive undertakings to create ultimately what we want to create. And we're the ones taking massive risks to start on phase 1 and ultimately try to get to phase 2, to phase 3, to phase 4. But we're willing to do it because we think we'll get there. And we're willing to put the effort and the time and the energy to get there. At the same time we're doing that, we're maintaining a mall and keeping it relevant and not letting it decline visually, from a tenancy perspective, from an occupancy perspective, from a tax paying perspective. This entire project is going on around the country in different forms and fashions by certain groups. But these are very difficult projects to make happen. We just can't go. We have Dave & Buster's in the way. We have LA Fitness with a 9-year lease left. Dave & Buster's has 10 years left on a lease. Macy's, owns their building. But I mean, so we just can't come in. We can show you phase 2, and we're happy to show it to you right now. But we can't do it. Even if you gave us the right to do it, we can't do it because there's so many obstacles in our way to get this done. And we have to spend a fortune to move those obstacles to get it done. This is how it starts. And this is how we start moving the pieces. And I think, and we've listened to the community, we've designed something that is anything but just putting down an apartment project. Again, it's investing 10 million in a plaza. We're doing that for the betterment of the entire project and to give us the ability to go to phase 2. And we're already negotiating. We are negotiating right now with Dave & Buster's. We put Dave & Buster's in this mall 4 years ago. Dave & Buster's was going to Trumbull. We convinced them to come to Connecticut Post because of what we sold them on, of our ownership and what we were going to do. We convinced them. We did a deal with Dave & Buster's. We spent $5 million to put Dave & Buster's in this mall. Now, 4 years later, we are negotiating to move Dave & Buster's at the cost of $7 million over to the food court area where Cinemark is, in order to get to phase 2. We're already in negotiations with Dave & Buster's. We have to move them. That's $7 million for us to move them. A tenant we already have. We've already paid $4 million for them to be at the mall. Now we got to spend $7 million to move them for no additional rent, just for the ability to clear one obstacle, to tear down a very unproductive wing of the mall that was connected to Sears, and go to phase 2, which would bring additional uses of, university, of medical, of office, of the nature of things that are desirable here. So I just want to be, I want to answer the question, but I just want you to understand the nature of what this project entails in order for it to be tackled. And it's a major undertaking. But if you don't start, it just stays a mall, and that just declines. That's just the only two paths we have.
Thank you. Mark, is there anything else you'd like to say or add, or another question?
No, I think I made my comment. Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you. Peggy, you wanted to speak.
I did, but I think the question was already answered by Mr. Neff with the fact that we're not setting a precedent. So for example, if Dick's in 5 years says, see ya, and you're gone, that you wouldn't want to tear down Dick's and put another 320 units in there. That would be a concern, but I think it's been, you explained that it would have to go through a process of, we're not setting a precedent by putting in the 320 here. So thank you for answering that question.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sulkus?
would you like me to read my staff report?
Sure.
I don't have to.
Yes, why not?
Okay. The staff offers the following changes to clarify the language proposed by the applicant. Clerical changes, 3.9.2.7, change the comma after eating places to a semicolon, i.e. eating places. 3.9.4.1 and 3.9.4.2, add the following in parentheses after the word yards. In number 4, yards, and then in parentheses, front, rear, side as principal uses, and yards, front, rear, side as accessory uses. Currently under the proposed regulation, they're just saying yard. They're not specifying front, rear, and side, although that is clearly the intent. 3.9.4.31, change the reference to 3.9.4.2, subsection 4 to just section 3.9.4.2. And then, as was touched on earlier, change the except that multifamily dwelling shall not blah, 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 to, except any building that contains multifamily dwelling shall not. And then in terms of content, we have the board, when it comes to the plaza area under 3.9.4.2 subsection 7, the board will have discretion in determining what meaningful contiguous open space is, since that was obviously not defined. So there's no formula provided to calculate whether that should be a minimum, maximum, whatever it is. When the applicant comes in with a future site plan and special permit, you'll be able to make a judgment as to whether or not that plaza area meets that requirement. Regarding parking, as Mr. Nuff had stated earlier, staff takes no exception to the proposal for the reduced parking amounts of actually 1.5 spaces per unit of the bedroom counts. Further, we take no exception to the proposed calculated regional shopping mall category with 3 spaces per 1,000 of leasable area versus the current 1 space per 250 of gross area of the mall. Storage areas of 10,000 square feet or greater per store should not be counted towards the gross leasable area for parking calculations. But clarification is needed regarding the language proposed, which further states that the storage areas shall be a deduction from the gross leasable area. And the way it's written, which is why I sort of have here as an example, and I'm hoping the applicant will clarify this, is the way the language is written. It could be interpreted that, for example, 40,000 square foot store where you have 20,000 square feet of storage is the leasable gross area for the parking, the remaining 20,000 square feet, which I think it is. But again, the way it's written, it could be construed that, or is the 20,000 square foot area deducted from the 20,000 square foot gross leasable area, yielding a zero parking requirement. So, and I'm thinking that's not the intent, but it could be construed just the way that was written. So I just want to get some clarification.
Okay.
Got it.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Question, I have some questions through you to Mr. Sulkus.
Yep.
If your office examined the proposal by the applicant for the zone change with the upcoming changes in the zoning laws that went into effect in the most recent legislative session.
Yeah, this isn't affected by any of the changes.
Why is that? Through the chair to Mr. Sulkus, please.
Because this is a mixed use commercial development. A lot of the changes had to do with single family homes on single family lots when it was the changes made by statute regarding housing. So this is not a single family lot.
I think the question is more of restaurants and park.
Doesn't really affect them all because they already have outside dining. So what they're asking for here is to, allow them to have outside dining. So, I mean, they're just asking for what a standalone restaurant would get. Again, this isn't quite like, again, a standalone restaurant or a small plaza. So they're obviously covering their bases as they have outdoor dining now to just make sure that that is a use that they can do.
Did I represent you accurately, Mr. Sadi?
So far you did. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have another question?
Not yet. I have another statement when it comes appropriate time for questions by you.
And then just to make it even just a tad clearer on the restaurants, although it sounds like you're happy with the answer. They're not asking, unlike the state statute, to put any of the outside dining into parking. They're clearly going to be designing areas for it to be located. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer David's questions if you want to, or wait until the end, but I just want to make sure I have the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, you can do it now. That's fine. Well, it's fresh in our minds.
Okay, terrific.
Confused minds, but minds.
We're okay with all of David's recommended changes with regard to, the clerical changes. In terms of the content, we understand, and we have gone on at some length about the importance of that plaza area. And if you wanted to add a minimum square footage of 35,000 square feet to that provision in the regulations, we'd be happy to add that, or happy to accept that as a modification of the proposed regulation amendments. And then with regard to David's example, a 40,000 square foot store with 20,000 square foot of storage. I mean, so the history of that regulation is really because of the anchor stores, because that was dead space. I mean, I understand David's point. I appreciate it. No one's going to devote half their store to storage. I mean, that's not the way modern retail works, because you're not making money if your product is sitting in the back. But the answer to his question is no, the gross leasable area would be 20,000 square feet. So dead space is dead space. We think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be parking for it, particularly when we all know that there is a surplusage of parking in the mall. And the higher and more strict your parking requirements are, the less development and less taxes people end up paying, because you just have a patch of asphalt instead of something that's actually creating income. So I think I answered all of Dave's questions, but I hope that the offer of 35,000 square feet for the plaza is met with the commission's consideration and approval, because it sort of puts our land where our mouth is in terms of how important we think that space is.
Thank you. David, was that clear to you?
Yes. Yeah, no, he answered. Yeah, I totally agree with how they're computing the proposed parking rates. It was just a question, again, on the verbiage that was in there, where it wasn't, to me, clear. It was clear that you're removing parking that is storage, but the way the language seemed to be, it could have been interpreted that, okay, you've removed that, that's fine, but now you're taking that amount that you've removed and you're.
Yeah, you can't subtract it twice. I get it.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to make sure.
One way to fix it is simply to say, shall not be included in the parking calculations, period.
Yeah.
And eliminate the language that says, and shall be a deduction from.
Right. Yeah.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Any other further questions or comments from the board?
I mentioned the 830G situation. I don't think that was answered. 300 apartments, that's a big chunk of apartments, and it's going to change our percentage. And I'm wondering, and as well, affordable apartments for the workers at the mall would be, that's kind of like a perfect match. But I'm wondering if that's been worked into your, into your computations for the apartments. Or if you could, I guess.
No, I think that's something that we could consider when we submit a special permit application, assuming this gets approved, is the incorporation of affordable. We understand the city's concern, and obviously there's a moratorium that's still existing. As you may or may not know, once that moratorium lapses, the city is starting from scratch. So, but we understand the importance, and I think that's something that we could address at the next stage of the process.
Well, by addressing it, you mean you could say yes or no.
Well,
at this point, there's an opportunity to say, yeah, we'll allow 300 units, but 50% has to be market rate with 20% being affordable. I mean, that's something that the board could consider tonight, or if in fact we carry this into the next meeting, that could be something that we could propose. To your question, John, if it's something the board feels strongly about, and then that's something that we should consider and discuss amongst ourselves.
The statute says that the board shall act on the regulation amendment proposal, which means you can approve, deny, or modify. So your response is correct under the statute. Yes.
Thank you for that.
Well,
I'm not often correct.
Well, can I say this? We don't, again, these are this is an economic project. We have to, at the time, we have to look at a lot of things to make sure the numbers work. And it's hard to say, construction costs change. So much changes with regard to what has to be done. And again, we're paying for this ourselves. We don't have anybody else to go to. So we don't know what can and can't be done. I mean, the model we've run is on market rate apartments. That in of itself has been tight. I think if it's, so it's very hard to make a commitment, if you're saying, a relatively small amount, because we're committing to something blindly. We're committing to something that we don't know that it works. And so to do that, obviously, we may not be getting anything. John, Michelle, what's your comment?
Well, I think, we are not clear on what the project's going to be approved, and a minimum commitment of something like 5% and 80% AMR, we could make that tonight as part of the approval. That's about as far as we could go with the uncertainty that we have.
Well, I appreciate that, willingness to off the cuff, to have something to offer. I appreciate that very much. I personally would like to not vote on this tonight and to carry it to the next meeting. I kind of want to spend a little bit of personal time on each of the language changes and try to vision out what the upsides and the downsides could possibly be. I'm a fan of this year-long effort, and I'm a fan of being able to have a collaborative experience with the mall owners and architects and their team. And I do see that there is a need, unquestionable need to do something with this mall and reimagine it, reinvent it. And, I have a couple of thoughts, and I just think they probably will be difficult to tie a commercial piece in with building A. Phase one would be some residential and some commercial. Phase two would be the rest of the residential and some commercial. I think there's an enormous fear that, and not presupposing any bad intent on the developer or the owner's part, but that, the world changes and all of a sudden a new owner comes in and doesn't share the same commitment that I feel from this team that's in front of us tonight and has been for a year. Certain things are just unforeseen. So I think personally, I want to poke some holes in the language and see if there are potential downsides in case something changes in the ownership, that we don't open a door that we can never close. But if the commission decides that they want to take a vote tonight, I would hear a motion. I would like to consider it more deeply, personally.
Of course, I fully join with you. As Mr. Levin pointed out, in the year-long project he's been working on, he didn't want to commit to something blindly, nor should I think we should. I think we should be allowed to go back and look what we did a year ago, see if there's any changes. We presented with a lot of material. It's a wonderful presentation this evening. Mr. Nuff said a lot of it is different, and I think that we need time to look at it. It is going to be a substantial change. And if I recall, the vote did not go favorably for the applicants. I'd like to be able to review the materials. I'd like to make sure that there is no conflict with the new statutory changes. And I'd like to consider the comments of the other board members before we have a chance to vote on this. I think we should have a full ability to think about this and sort this out. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. Can I move to table this?
Yes. Would that be the appropriate thing, table or just continue? David, what would your,
You would keep the public hearing open and you would continue it.
okay.
Can I make a comment? When is it appropriate can I make a comment?
Oh, yes, you're welcome anytime, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay. Look, I really don't know much. I know I talk a lot. I don't really know what else to say. We're kind of at the end. I don't know. We don't have a plan B. I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate but at the end of the day, if the commission doesn't want to vote tonight, we just don't have a lot of time. These things are we're writing checks every month to maintain. If this is a matter of, are we coming back in a week or 2 or 3? That's one thing. I guess I'd like to understand because I know everybody is afraid of many things, and I get the uncertainty, but the uncertainty being faced today is real. And
well, let me interrupt you for just a second. I would bet bottom dollar that if tonight's outcome was not in your favor, you would rather wait 2 weeks and have everybody give it some more thought. And it is our job, the reason we're elected is to do what we, with our greatest consideration, do the best thing for Milford. I understand you're talking about the money that you guys have spent and the investments you made. That is not our really purview. I understand it's significant to you, and it is significant to you as we are simpatico. We're partners in this piece of property to one extent. But I can assure you that you'll be happier if you get a better solution if you wait 2 weeks than if you got voted down tonight. That I can guarantee. And I'm not saying one way or another what would happen, but I think that should be a primary consideration, having had the members ask to kick it down the road 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Chair, point of order, please. Is there not a motion by Mr. Castagnoli on the floor?
I did invite Mr. Levin to speak.
I expect that you did, but now I would make a motion. I would second Mr. Castagnoli's motion. So therefore, it's only between the board members to make a decision if you feel it's necessary.
Good
Thank
enough.
you.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question is, I think we're off a week. So the next meeting is when?
It
Next
would
might be
be
next week.
It's the 21st.
21st, okay.
Let me double check that for you. Let me find my calendar. Give me 2 seconds.
21st is a Tuesday, of course.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Yeah, because that's our normal meeting night.
Yeah, first and third, yes, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay. Thank you. We have old business, none, liaison reports.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nothing, Mr. Quish from Scrog.
Okay. Subcommittee reports. David, do we have a time frame to review the POCD?
Yeah, I need to consult with you so we can schedule interviews.
Okay. So we have received, I believe, 4 responses to an RFQ for consultants for our plan of conservation and development.
That's correct.
And we will get back to you on that, and we will get back to you on the next regulation subcommittee meeting.
Very good.
Next, we have approval of minutes. We have a motion.
I'll move to approve minutes.
Joseph, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, without objection. That's passed. Chair's report. I've done just thank everybody for their attention to this and everything that we do. The next would be staff report.
None this evening, other than you touched on it. We did get 4 proposals, which the committee will go through. And I would anticipate interviewing at least 3 of them.
Great, awesome.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
through you, if you select somebody, does that come before the full board for approval, or does it only stay with the P O C D?
I think it would be with the POCD. I mean, we'd obviously have someone,
I think it's administrative approval with input from the subcommittee.
right.
Thank you very much for educating us.
All righty, we motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Nate?
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody.
Good night.